On the Game Time Guru podcast, my goal is to deliver a panoramic view on sports. I do so by interviewing individuals across the globe that have some sort of tie to the sports world. Today is a first for us on the show as I speak with a stop motion animator who recreates sporting events with Legos. You don't want to miss this episode of the Game Time Guru. So, what time is it? Game time! Woo! If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. Excited to be here with you today for yet another amazing episode with another amazing guest. Now, before we get started, you guys got to check out 208 Printing. Massive shout out to my sponsors. If you guys want some merch taken care of for you, you got hats, shirts, whatever, anything that needs some printing done, go to madeby208.com. Go check them out. They are the sponsor of the Game Time Guru podcast. Again, 208 Printing. You can go to madeby208.com and check them out. Guys, I'm super excited about bringing on this guest. It's the first time we've ever brought someone on like himself. It's amazing what he does. He's artistic, creative, and he's bringing that skill set to the sports world, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I got to introduce Jared Jacobs, also known as, and most commonly known as on social media, GoldYeller. Jared, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely, man. So Jared happens to be a stop motion animator. That's the name of it, stop motion animator. And we're going to get a little bit more into that, what it is. But first, I got to tell you guys where I met him, which is a super weird coincidence. We're going to talk about this for a second. I didn't know I had met you at this event, but can you talk about this Gary Vaynerchuk event and what actually happened there? Because I think that's a little bit more to the story. I thought I had just met you through a connection that we had, but actually I had seen you 3 years ago almost.
So you knew who I was before you knew who I was.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying?
Pretty much, man.
So you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead and tell the story, man.
Okay, so so the way that we got introduced was through a buddy of ours, Matt Frew. Shout out to Matt. He brought me. He sort of snuck me into this event. It was a ClickFunnels event, and Gary Vaynerchuk was the keynote speaker. And Matt knew that I was a huge Gary V fan. And so I had talked to him, like, I was like, dude, I'll be his Uber driver. Like, I'll go pick him up at the airport. I'm like, I have to meet this guy somehow. Cause I'd followed Gary for years. And then like out of the blue, like a day or two later, he's like, dude, I can get you in. And so I was like, no way. And so I go, I'm super like nervous and like totally fangirling over another like grown man. So, I mean, it's not really embarrassing to me because I've come to terms with it. But anyway, Gary always does these Q&A things whenever he does a keynote speech. And so I kind of knew this was my time to get his attention. And he talks about attention all the time and how important it is to have people's attention. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I know that people ask him questions all the time and like how they can grow their business. And, you know, and he always, you know, I kind of knew the answers that he was going to give because I'd followed him for so long that I was like, I don't need anything from this guy. So I got up there and I just said, hey, I just wanted to thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't get up here. You gave me the permission to pursue what I love to do. And now I get to do, I didn't say what I did. I wasn't trying to like promote my business. I was just like, I was legit grateful for him. And so I just said, hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't get up here and say thank you because I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And then I knew that he was really competitive. And so I said, if you ever want to play bubble hockey, I'll destroy you. Because this was something that he had in his office. And I'd seen a lot of his stuff around it. And so I was like, and he, at one point he said, nobody on this earth can beat me at bubble hockey. He's like, I don't care if you're from Edmonton or whatever. And so I was like, I'm going to challenge him to bubble hockey. So I went from like super grateful mode to super competitive mode like that. And then he thought it was funny that like all the crowd laughed. And then all of a sudden he just kind of flipped a switch too. He's like, I was actually wearing this hat. Another coincidence. And he's like, I'm kind of scared of that hat because he's like, you might be really good at bubble hockey because that team hasn't been in the league for 20 years. So he's like, but he's like, you know what I'm going to do based on what you just said? He's like, I'm going to fly you out to New York and you're going to spend a day at VaynerMedia, and we'll play bubble hockey that day and we'll see what's up. And so I was like, after that, I didn't really remember what happened. I kind of just blacked out because I was like, it was like a dream come true. It was like if I was a Make-A-Wish kid and they just told me I get to go to like Disneyland and meet Mickey Mouse or whatever. I don't know,
Right.
whoever I was a fan of. So it was pretty. It took like 5 months for me to actually get there. They kept like bumping me. I don't know if maybe I wasn't much of a priority to them, so they just kept like it kept getting pushed and pushed. And then I went there like the day after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and then we didn't play for like 8 hours though. Like I just kind of sat waiting for him. I had a buddy of mine fly out to film the whole thing. And so he just kind of stalled us out, and that was the only way that he won. He ended up beating me by a goal. I told him I was going to destroy him, but he used some greasy, like older brother type tactic to stall me out, and now he's scared to give me a rematch. I've asked him a couple times, and he's scared. It's like when I don't know if you have a younger brother, but if like your younger brother, like if you beat your older brother at something, and then you're like, I'm not playing you anymore. That's what Gary did.
Oh, I have a friend of mine who was going to relate to you so well on that because we just discussed that when his younger brother would beat him at something. It's like, okay, we're done playing. Oh, excuse me? No, 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 no.
Yeah, no, my little brother would do that to me too. And I would like whenever we'd play basketball or whatever in our backyard. And when he finally started getting to the point where he could beat me, because I had always dominated him because he's 2 years younger than me. Once he started beating me, I would get just furious that he wouldn't play me again. I'd be like chucking the ball at his head. Like we'd get in like serious fights over the fact that he wouldn't play me again. So Gary's kind of like my little brother.
Oh, I love it, man.
He
And
beat me once and now he won't play me again. He's scared.
he's worried. He's worried.
You can clip this part and you can tweet it at Gary and say, Gary, I heard that you're scared.
Oh, we're gonna get some retweets out of this one too, for sure. Man, it's so crazy. The reason I wanted you to share that story and for the audience to hear is because I remember that vividly, being at that event and the guy who got up and challenged him to bubble hockey and how he's like, yeah, we're gonna fly you out there. I'm like, whoa, I think the whole crowd was just like, that's awesome. Like, that's super cool. I had no idea, just so you guys know, I had no idea of this until we just started talking probably 20 minutes ago, if that. Like, and that's why I'm just so grateful you shared that. Now, you did say something there, Jared, that I want you to elaborate on. You said he gave you permission to kind of pursue what you enjoy doing. Was that the stop motion animation stuff that you're referring to?
Yeah. I mean, I had kind of played around, like I'd already always been kind of a kid interested in art. I remember even when I went to college, that was what I majored in my freshman year was art, because I was like, this is what I like to do. And I remember my dad telling me, he's like, the only artists that make money are dead artists. That's the only time that they'll make money. This was before social media. Like I'm older. I'm 42 now, and so I mean, back then that was pretty much true. Like it was really hard to make money as an artist. Um, but now that social media is here, it kind of changed the game. But like listening to Gary, so I switched my major. I switched it to like a business management major, which was useless to me. I mean, I guess I learned some skills, but I'm like, I don't care about accounting. Like, what am I doing in this class? Like, I'd rather be doing something creative that I like to do. So for years, I just kind of, got a regular job and did whatever I was supposed to do and thought that this was what was going to, get me the little white picket fence and a house, and it wasn't. And so finally, I started kind of dabbling in it, and I think the unlock for me listening to Gary, I don't know how, I think I stumbled across him through Casey Neistat. I watched his vlogs all the time, and he kind of introduced me to Gary, and I was just hooked like right away. He's kind of like in your face and swears like a sailor, but I mean, I didn't really care about any of that. For some reason he spoke to me. And so, he just kind of always preaches that, like, do what you love, and figure out a way to make it from your side hustle to your regular job. And I had some stuff that kind of blew up on the internet. And I remember reaching out to him when it happened, and he was like, okay, now do this. This was before he was like really, really big. But he's like, okay, write a Medium post. And he's like, you should do this. And I didn't do any of the things that he told me to do. I was just like, Sports Center wants to interview me. Like, I don't know what to do here. Like this, it was just crazy. It all happens really fast. But listening to him, that was the permission that I needed. Had I listened to my dad, I would probably have my own business as like a window washer or something, you know, like doing something that I absolutely hated, but was making decent money. But now, like, I get to make art stuff around sports, and like just kind of the opportunity, like getting to go and hang out with like your idol basically, was just crazy to me. Like even when I was there, I was like, I can't believe that I'm here. And like when we were playing, I was down like 3-0, like right away. I'd like scored on myself twice, which I never do, but I was so nervous. But then I kind of got in a groove and started to come back, and I ended up losing by a goal. But I could tell he started getting nervous, and then he's like, "Oh, maybe I'll come back and play a little bit." He's like, "You deserve a rematch," but then he never came back because he's scared.
I love it, man. And it's inspiring to hear someone like yourself who just kind of like went with their passion. You heard this advice from a well-known entrepreneur, very prestigious individual who's really well known in the entrepreneurial space, and you took it and you implemented this. You kind of ran with your passion. Now, obviously, a lot of your stop motion animation, just so the audience knows, I want you guys to go follow GoldYeller on Instagram right now. He's also got YouTube. Like, I want you guys to go check this out because you got Legos, which for me, I am so impatient with. And I've watched some of your like clips of you like putting stuff together. We're gonna get into that in a second. I have no idea how you have the patience for that. It is so meticulous, in my opinion, like to like put stuff together. But you recreate sports situations. Like you put courts together. You recreate sports moments. What was the passion with sports, and when did that happen? Did you have a passion for sports your whole life that kind of drove you into this to kind of combine the arts and sports together?
Yeah, I played hockey growing up. I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. And so I played hockey until I was like maybe 11. And then hockey started becoming too expensive. I think my dad lost his job, and they were just kind of like, can you not play hockey anymore? How about we put you in basketball? And I was like, well, why can't I do both? But anyways, I ended up playing basketball for like for all of junior high and high school, and I fell in love with that game too. But I mean, I've always loved sports, any kind of sport. I love to play. And then the Lego side of it, I made some Breaking Bad videos out of Lego just because I've always been fascinated by stop motion. And so I was like, well, I think I could figure this out. And so like I just started playing around with some stuff on my phone and started doing what was sort of stop motion. And then I posted a couple of them on my Instagram, and a couple of actors from the show found them, and they were like, you have to keep doing these. So I did. And then once that show ended, I switched to sports, and golf was specifically what I had chosen. I did a video for Boise State golfer, Graham Dillette, who's also Canadian. And I just tweeted it at him, I just kind of made it for fun. Tweeted at him and his caddy, and then he ended up retweeting it like a few hours later. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, all this attention's flowing at me. Because I don't know, he had like 150,000 followers on Twitter or something. So I'd never seen that kind of attention before. So I was like, I'm on to something here. And so the next week I made a Tiger Woods at the Masters on 16, when the ball just kind of rolls down the hill and finally drops in the hole. And that video just went crazy viral. Next thing I knew, like Pinehurst Resort reached out, like Big Ten Network, Bleacher Report was wanting me to do like NBA Finals stuff, and it all just came at me like a whirlwind. I think it had been shared on like on ESPN's Instagram or something, and so everybody started hitting me up in the DMs on Instagram. I didn't even know what a DM was before that blew up for me, but that was kind of what got me into sports. And then from there, I just kind of did that on the side while I had my regular job as a marketing director for a lumber supply company here in town. And so I was trying to do that. I was making like a video a week for like the Big Ten Network. And then I remember making the NBA Finals, and it was just like super stressful. I wasn't sleeping. It wasn't healthy for me, but I tried doing that for like a year on the side. And then it got to the point where like I think the Golf Channel reached out, and it was enough money that I could make that leap. It was going to be tight, but I was like, I remember talking to my wife. I'm like, if I don't do this now, I'll always look back with regret. And that was one of the things also that specific to Gary is, not living with the fear of having regret. Like he says, go spend some time in an old folks home. And if you see regret in those people's eyes, like it's not a good thing. And so I didn't want to be in an old folks home in 40 years from now and look back with regret where I'm like, oh, remember when this stuff blew up for me? And then I just kept plugging away as a marketing director for a lumber supply company. Like as much as I liked what I did, like I was able to do creative things. Like I wasn't passionate about it. You know, it was just a job. And so my boss was super cool about it. He was super supportive, and I mean, he kind of knew that I had talent and that I wouldn't be there forever. And so he was sad to see me go, but I didn't think that it would turn into something that, like, I thought maybe I was like, I'm going to try and jump into this and maybe it'll go for like 6 months. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back and get my regular day job. But now I'm like 3 years into it, and stuff just like bigger stuff just keeps coming. I just did some stuff for Jordan Spieth at the Travelers, and then the PGA. It was for the PGA Tour, and then they like showed it to him, and then next thing I know, like on Sunday on CBS, they're showing my video and Jordan Spieth's reaction to it, like on national TV, and I'm like, this is so crazy. Like every time something like that happens, it's just, I'm just super grateful for it, and that's a big reason why I'm so grateful for Gary, and just he's been such an inspiration to me. And that's kind of that permission where if I would have talked to my dad and said, hey dad, I remember talking to my dad, and he's like, it's too bad you can't monetize this, when it had first blown up. And I was like, Dad, they just interviewed me in Australia, like on a golf channel in Australia. I'm like, how can I not monetize this? Like I'll figure out a way that I can monetize this. But I'm like, I don't care how much money I make doing it. I'm like, I love doing this. If I can make enough money to support a family doing this, like I win. You know what I mean? Even if we don't live in like a super luxurious house and drive a fancy car, I'm like, I don't care. I get to do what I love. I get to get up on my terms. And I mean, it's just, I feel so lucky every day that I get to just do what I want to do. And if it's something that I decide I want to do, then I can do it, you know?
Totally. I think it's super inspiring as someone who's also a content creator myself. Like it's one of those battles that I have always kind of gone with in my head. Like, I ultimately love to do this full time. It's one of those things that we all struggle with, trying to like get a full-time living, even regardless of what that means. For some people it might be different than others, but like, that's so inspiring that you're able to like, you went in and you shoot for your passions and your dreams, and you're doing some amazing work. You mentioned the Jordan Spieth thing. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, I just saw that posted on the social feeds, man. Talk to us about that whole thing. Like, from my perspective, is like you recreate these awesome scenes with the Legos. Again, guys, if you're listening to this right now, go to GoldYeller at GoldYeller on the social platforms. You'll see all of his videos, and we'll reference a few of these here. So I want you guys to be able to actually put the visualization of it all together when you guys go and watch these. So the Jordan Spieth thing, you're watching a sporting event. For me, I don't follow golf too closely. I'm not sure how it all works, but like, how long does it take you to put that together? Do you have to like watch that same scene over and over and over again? And then how long does it typically take you to make it?
So the golf ones take a long time. Now that I've gotten better at what I do, like, and I have to like make sure all these little details are part of it. I would say that Jordan Spieth one probably took over 100 hours to make that 30-second video. But I mean, it's not all of them take that long. Like when I do like the basketball ones, like the Kawhi Leonard shot against Philadelphia, that took like about 50 hours. And that was one when it happened where I was like, oh, I have to recreate that. Like, even if I don't get paid for that, I have to make that. Same with the Damian Lillard shot from the logo. When that happened, I was like, I'm making that regardless of if anybody's paying me. And those are usually the ones that blow up the most, or ones that aren't like commissioned work. But now it's to the point where I pretty much, if I'm going to do something, I'm probably getting commissioned to do it by whether it's the PGA Tour. I did some stuff for NASCAR, tennis, US Open. Like I've just done worked with some amazing brands that people are just like, how do you get to work with these brands? And I'm like, I don't know. You just like put stuff out there, and if you're good enough, they're going to see it and they're going to want to work with you, I guess. I wish I knew the formula to it, because I'd teach it and make money selling a ebook or something,
Right.
and make money in my sleep. But I don't really know the formula. I just kind of know what works for me and what's gotten me to where I'm at today.
Man, some of your work is just absolutely incredible, man. I'm talking like obviously 100 hours for the Jordan Speed thing, 50 hours for some of the basketball stuff. You referenced the Kawhi Leonard shot, guys. Like I'm telling you, it's unbelievable to me. I saw the Kawhi Leonard shot. I think it's crazy. You did the Mike Leach press conference one. You've done some NASCAR stuff, some tennis stuff. You're recreating these scenes like to me, I got a question for you then. When you're putting this together, do you have all the Lego sets that you need to recreate these? And like, do you have to make the field and all that stuff? Or do you get those sent to you like specifically, like if it's an Auburn field or if it's a Fiesta Bowl field, is it already pre-made for you? Or do you have to actually make the field too?
I have to make it. So
Oh
when I did the stuff with the Big Ten
gosh.
Network, I worked with a company called Oyo Sports, which is kind of a knockoff of Lego. And they would send me stuff that was like they'd have the fields, like a Michigan State field or whatever. But they were smaller fields and they were way harder to work with as far as stop motion goes. So now, like I just make the fields. Like, oh, here, I'll show you. I still have some of the Jordan Spieth stuff up right here. I've just started taking it down.
Right.
But it's taken up so much space, and I'm just kind of tucked in a little closet here in like a co-working space as my studio, because I can black out the room and use consistent lighting, and that's what I need. But for like probably 2 years, I was doing this like in the corner of our living room, and I would just have to wait until it was nighttime so I could film, so that I wouldn't get flicker in the videos. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah. um, I forgot what the original
Well, I was
question
just
was.
talking about you answered it for me about the fields themselves. Like if you have to put them together and
Oh
you
yeah.
showed us like all of it, like it, I mean, like I said, it seems super, super meticulous. I was watching for example, for all of you guys who are listening, the Fiesta Bowl between Boise State and Oklahoma. I referenced this a little bit earlier. You recreated that whole scene, the Statue of Liberty play, this, that. I was actually at that game. So it's a really cool experience for me to see it recreated in a Lego animation. You have numbers on the players. And, you know, my question is, when I've watched the videos of you actually like putting it together, do you have to like move one thing at a time and take a picture? How does the whole process work after you've got the field set up and you've lined them up? Like when you start moving them, what's the process?
Yeah, the football ones, they take so long because there's 22 guys on the field, and then you have to worry about the crowd and the coaches on the sideline. So there's a lot going into it. And you talked about patience, and I'm not a very patient person either. Like I don't.
Surprising.
People always ask me, they're like, "How do you have the patience? I could never do this." And I'm like, it's actually somewhat therapeutic for me. Like I'm actually super ADD and just all over the place. I mean, you can tell just by looking at my studio that it's everything's everywhere, and like I don't even know how I function in it. But I mean, it really is. It's like a therapy for me. That hyper focus mode that I go into. It's I've never been to therapy, but I'm assuming that this is what it would be like if I went and saw a therapist. Maybe I should go to therapy, but this is kind of my therapy, that I just kind of hunker down. And yeah, I mean, you can't move around a lot. There's so much that go into those football ones where you're basically just moving. I have my Boise State one right here, actually. I was just playing around with that. So I've got one of the players, and you're basically just moving them each frame for like 400 or 500 frames. And every player that's on there, I do some, like, if you really want to see it, you go and watch stuff on Instagram. I've started doing more behind the scenes stuff, but yeah, it's just, you move the guy a little bit each frame. The golf ones, you have to like pop their arms out of socket and like use putty to make it kind of look like they're swinging. So, I mean, there's constraints with Lego, but I actually really like those constraints because it makes you be more creative, and you're like, how am I going to do this? Like even having like the ball hang in the air, like I have to pull out a gray hair and just kind of fashion. You can see it. Like if you go look at the Jordan Spieth one, I posted one that had the behind the scenes, and then PGA Tour like posted it on like their Instagram and TikTok with like all three of them together, and it looks really cool. But I mean, that kind of shows you like what goes into it. And a lot of people just think, they're like, what is this, CGI or something? How's this guy doing this? But then with the behind the scenes, it gives people even a greater appreciation for like what goes into it. And that's kind of been what's set me apart from the rest, I think.
Totally, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like I am thrown off completely, like just blown away, just how much detail goes into just watching your behind the scenes stuff. That's what got me. I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, the finished product looks cool. There's so much in there. Now you mentioned like 500 frames, 400 frames. Um, is that typical for about a 30-second video, about 500 frames? And when you say frames, is that just like clicking the camera 500
Yeah,
times?
so typically like a frame rate is like 24 frames per second. Like if you're watching a movie, it's probably going to be around 24 frames per second. That's kind of how the eye works. I'll shoot sometimes 12 frames per second or even 8 frames per second. Like if I'm doing a football one, it's probably 8 frames per second just because there's so many people in it. And if I did it at 12 frames per second, it would take like 3 times as long. So I change up the frame rate and I kind of go with whatever works for me. I'm not classically trained at this. Like I just kind of hacked it together. And like if you look at some of my early stuff, it was really bad. Like it was terrible. The fact that like Daniel Moncada from Breaking Bad and his cousin were just like sharing it on their accounts and being like, dude, you have to keep doing these. Like had they not done that, I probably wouldn't be doing this for a living, to be honest. Like I don't think it would have given me that confidence to go forward because they really weren't that good. Like even the Tiger Woods one that like is probably one of my most viral videos to date. Like I look back on that and it's cringy. I'm like, this is really bad. Like I want to redo that. So I may redo that with the PGA Tour. I've done a lot of stuff with PGA Tour now, and I really like working with them and partnering with them. And so I may next time we do something, I may be like, hey, maybe we could recreate that Tiger one again because most people don't know that that's even me that did that. Like it was all over the place, but you know how people's attention
Yeah.
spans are. They're like, you did that how many years ago? 5 years ago? Yeah, I don't remember that. Or they're like, I vaguely remember that. So, I mean, I don't really expect people to remember that that was me, but most people have seen some of my work somewhere because it's been all over the place. Like as soon as ESPN shares stuff out, I'm always like, here we go. Like the notifications are gonna go crazy. I'm gonna have to put my phone away for a little bit because it's just overwhelming. Like if I want to get any work done, I have to. I mean, with that hyper focus, you can't be looking at your phone the whole time, and it's hard to manage social media and also be doing what I do. And so a lot of times I'll just like kind of turn my phone on airplane mode, and it's actually helped a lot with me doing the behind the scenes now because I'll just film a time lapse on my phone, and so I can't look at my phone, and so it
Yeah.
forces me to do that, and it's actually been kind of nice, and I don't know why I haven't been doing that all along.
That's awesome, man. Like it's just so cool. And you're just looking at the work. Like I've got your Instagram page pulled up. I know I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. Like I think it's so amazing. You're you have one that got shared with the Golden State Warriors on their actual page, which is crazy. I think it had over 1 million views on their page. So like it's crazy how like popular this stuff is. Like, is there a favorite one in your let's say top three? I know there's a lot, but like what are your top three that you've created in this tenure that you've been doing this that you're the most proud of at this point? I'm sure that's hard to say, but what's your top three?
So that the Boise State one that you referred to, the Fiesta Bowl, living in Boise for the last 16 years, I mean that's my team. So to be able to work with Boise State on something was kind of near and dear to me. So that's probably up there in my top three. I would say honestly the Jordan Spieth one that I just did, that was one of my favorites. And I would say either the Tiger Woods hole in one or the Tiger Woods President's Cup where he does the little club twirl. I didn't know how I
Oh,
was going to do that, and so I love how that one turned out. Those are I'd probably say those were top three. I love doing the stuff with the Golden State Warriors. Like it actually afforded me the opportunity to go out and take my cousin to like Game 3 of the NBA Finals, and both of us being from Canada, you know, we're kind of low key cheering for the Raptors, but with Golden State being the ones that invited us out there, we kind of had to, you know, kind of act like we've been there before. But it was just so cool to be able to go watch one of the last games played in Oracle Arena. And then when Toronto won that game, everybody kind of congregated down, all the Canadians. There was a ton of Canadians there, and they all just kind of met each other. We just kind of gravitated towards each other and then started singing like "Oh Canada" down by like center court. And then it was on Sports Center, and like my buddies are like sending me like screen recordings of like the back of my head on Sports Center. They're like, dude, that's you. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. If I would have known the camera was on, I would have turned around.
the fact that that's you kind of already kind of segued into another question I had for you on here, man, is the opportunities it's presented you by following your passion. I saw the NBA finals. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. The thing is with content creators, some people they're like, "Oh, do you want to get paid for it? What do you want? What do you want from this? What do you want from this?" And I always tell them like, "Hey, if I even got a media pass, if I get a media pass to go cover a game or cover Boise State or cover Ohio State, my teams, I would love that. Like that would be enough for me if they covered me to go out and do all these things. I saw that you. I'm trying to think like the main guy for the Raptors. What was his name? It's wow, the
Nav
super fan.
super fan.
Yes, you
Yeah.
got to meet him, and you
Yeah.
created a little Lego of him. What was that like?
So, so, I, so before I went there, I was just kind of like, I bet you Nab's at this game. And I had made a little minifigure of him, like with the turban on, with the beard, with everything, and like his jersey, like the '95 Nabs super fan. And he's just kind of iconic in the Toronto Raptors family. And so when I saw him, I was like, dude, I have this minifigure with me. I was like, I'm gonna give this to him. And it turned out to be like the jerseys that they were wearing. And so I just went up to him, and he was like a bigger celebrity than Beyonce and Jay-Z there. Like they were sitting courtside, but everybody was like wanting a picture with like Nat. Probably because Jay-Z and Beyonce have like bodyguards where
Yeah.
they're like untouchable. They're sitting next to like the owner, and but yeah, everybody's coming up to him, and I just went up and I was like, hey, here, I made this for you, and he just thought that was super cool. And then we like took a picture together, but he was kind of like super celeb too, so I was like, it was like somebody else was waiting in line to come take a picture with him right after me, so I didn't really get to talk to him. But yeah, it was cool making the little super fan and giving that to him. That was hopefully it's something that he still has. I'm sure nobody else has given him a Lego minifigure of him, so I'm sure that was something that's always stuck out. If I ever see him again, I'll be like, yeah, I'm the guy that met you at the NBA finals. I was kind of hoping Drake would be there, but he wasn't.
Yeah, that's a bummer, but that's so cool. You got to be there. That's such an awesome experience, just for one, just being there, and then two, you got to meet him and present him with a gift, and it's something that's like iconic to you. It's like unique to yourself and your skill set. Now, as I went through some of your work, Jared, I was looking at the sports you've covered. Do you have an interest in potentially covering? Like maybe mixed martial arts with the UFC or anything of recreating those types of events. I'm not sure. I saw some boxing ones, if I'm not mistaken, but what about like UFC? Have you ever done any MMA stuff?
I haven't done any MMA stuff yet, but I did make the octagon out of Lego just to see if I could do it, because I'm like, eventually they're probably going to reach out to me and want me to do something with them. Um, that's definitely something that I would like to do. I really like watching MMA, and our mutual friend Matt is usually who I'll go watch fights with. Um, I love doing I would love to do stuff with the MMA. There's not really anybody besides them that I haven't worked with that I've wanted to. I might be doing some NHL stuff here, which is pretty exciting for me. But I've done I did some stuff with the NHL Network before, so I've done NHL things before. But I always like those new kind of challenges. So like something like MMA would be awesome. Like WWE would be cool as well. But I'm more of like an old school WWF
Oh
type
yeah.
guy, just because that's what I grew up watching. I don't watch WWE, so I don't know how excited I would be about that. They actually reached out maybe a year or two ago, but nothing ever came to fruition. But yeah, I think MMA would be awesome to do. I would love, and like you said, like I would probably do something like that just so that I could go be there, like ringside at one of the fights. If it was like Conor McGregor versus like Nurmagomedov or however you pronounce his last name, Khabib. Like round two of that super fight would be amazing. I know Conor's retired, but he's retired like 3 times. So
Yeah,
if
he's
that
not
fight
retired.
ever, right,
He ain't staying.
he probably just wants attention, and so he's like, you know what, I'm gonna retire again, and then people will start talking to me,
Well,
just like
this
MJ with his documentary. He's like, everybody's talking about LeBron. I want to sell some more shoes. Maybe I'll put out this documentary. Like MJ doesn't care, he doesn't need to do that, but he's like, yeah, I want people to talk about me again.
Well, maybe you'll be the one that gives Connor the exposure that he's wanting right now. Maybe you can make some. Dude, Fight Island is coming up. They're fighting out at Fight Island. Maybe you can make another little recreation of Fight Island since it's gonna be the first one. The July 11th card is stacked.
Yeah, dude, I would love
packed.
if they ever reach out. I would say yes for sure. I actually had a company in the UK reach out around the Wilder fight. The last one
Oh,
just happened, and I mean, I think there was time constraints where I was like, yeah, I can't get that done, or maybe they weren't willing to pay what I charge now. I think it was something along those lines, but um, I would have done that, I told them sometimes I'll do that. If it's something that I want to go be at, like I'll charge less if you're going to fly me out and I'm sitting ringside. Even with like the US Open, like I wasn't a big tennis fan, but my mom is a huge tennis fan. Like she records the matches and like watches the entire thing. Like she's that big of a fan. And so when they reached out, I was like, is there any way that I can bring my mom to the US Open with me? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So I had like all access at the US Open. Like I remember after Bianca Andreescu won the US Open, a Canadian, again, I must be the good luck charm for these Canadian teams winning. Even though she's not a team, I remember we went to like this area. I had made some friends with some guys from South America, because I speak Spanish. And so we kind of became buddies, and they were kind of in the foyer, like players area afterwards. And so we were just hanging out. And then I see a dog and this lady who has a dog like back in the players area. And I was like, oh, that's a cute dog. So I went up and was like just talking to her and petting the dog. I had no idea that it was Bianca's mom. And I'm like playing with that dog. And I think she was getting interviewed by somebody like ESPN or something, because the girl that was there was kind of looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you need to be a little more self-aware. Like she gave me one of those looks,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, okay. So then I went and sat back with my buddies, and then the dog followed me. And so I'm just like, had I known that that was Bianca's dog, I would have been like, I probably would have waited around and like actually waited till Bianca came out, because she came out probably like 10 minutes after I left, after she had just won the US Open. And I was like, that was crazy. And then same thing happened with Nadal when he won. I'm like sitting in this area. All of a sudden they come out and they're like popping champagne. And I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be back here. Like, I was just charging my phone in this place. And then all of a sudden I'm like, that's the guy who just won the US Open. Like, this is crazy. So like, that would be cooler if I was like more of a tennis fan, but for like, if my mom would have been able to see that, she had already gone to like some Broadway play with my sisters. So she wasn't able to be there for that. But she was just like in heaven that she got to come to the US Open. She'd never been to anything like that before. And so getting to take my mom to do something like that, that was cooler than me actually going to it and hanging out in New York and getting to see Gary again and hang out with kind of his crew. That was cool too, but like to just see the look on my mom's face when we're just hanging out watching like Serena Williams play in like the finals of the US Open. That's like her favorite player. That was my favorite player too, until Bianca came on the scene, and I was like, well, I got to cheer for the Canadian. My mom's
Yeah,
American, so she can cheer for the American one, but I was like, I kind of have to cheer for the Canadian.
for sure.
And I wanted to. And then when she won, I remember same thing. Like everybody broke out into "Oh Canada" when she was getting like her Sports Center interview, and I was like, "Here we go again. This is like the Raptors all over." And every time I get goosebumps. Every time we like break out into "Oh Canada," I'm just like, "Oh, this is so awesome." But
That
yeah, it's just been crazy. Like the opportunities that have come from it is stuff that I never would have dreamed of.
Well, dude, here's the deal. Like, I am just like, you are living a life that I would love to live. Just have these opportunities. And I think it's so cool. I'm happy for you just hearing those. I'm like, that is awesome. These opportunities. It'd be the same for me. Like, I don't follow golf that closely or tennis or any of those, but I would be happy. Like, you understand the history of the sport. You understand the importance of it, like how popular it is. Like, that'd be a super cool opportunity to take advantage of. I think that's so cool. So that's like what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, if I got an offer to go, cover one of these things or just be there because of something I've done with the show, then that'd be super, super cool. Like I would be like a kid in a candy store. Like I said before, like it's awesome. And here's the deal. You gotta promise me something. If Tyson Fury ever offers, like if his crew ever offers you something that's worth it for you, just throw my name out there because he's my favorite fighter in the world. So
Are
Tyson,
you a big boxing fan?
I boxed for 3 years, and I'm a massive like mixed martial arts and boxing fan. So I'm a huge Tyson Fury fan. I love Ryan Garcia as well, but Fury's my favorite fighter of this generation, this era.
I mean, I really wanted to do that one. That was something. It wasn't his team that reached out. It was like one of the, I don't know, like basically the HBO of the UK, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't somebody I was familiar with, but they, they have a huge following on social, and I was like, oh, these guys are legit. Maybe we could do something. And I've always wanted to do a boxing one. Like I have the little Lego boxing like gloves and things like that. And it would be cool to customize something like that. But I think I'd be more into MMA than I would be boxing. I mean,
Totally.
I'd do either. But if it got me to the next Tyson Fury fight, like that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be super cool. I'd be super jealous, but you just maybe just throw my name out there if you ever get an opportunity, because the Tyson Fury stuff is amazing. But it's so cool, man. Like I can't wait to see what you come up with. Now, I just got to ask you, Jared, is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you'd like to add, or you'd like to add to the conversation? Because obviously we don't have, like, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about your field, but like, is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to expand upon?
No, I mean, I think it was good. I think I mean, I admire what you're doing. I think it's cool that you have a podcast and that you're passionate about sports, and I think it's going to afford you. It probably already has. You've probably had opportunities where you're like, how am I talking to? I don't know if, like, I haven't really listened to any of them, so I don't really know who you've even had on the show. But like, it just kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you're like, wow, I can't believe this is my life. Like, I can't believe I'm actually talking to Michael Jordan or Tyson Fury or whoever. You know what I mean? I think it's cool that you're doing what you're doing, and I think like if you're a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk like I am, like sometimes you need that permission. Like people are probably like, dude, you live in Boise, Idaho, and you have a sports podcast. Like, why does anybody care what you have to say? But people do. People care what you have to say, and you have a medium to kind of reach people and tell other people's stories. And I mean, storytelling is probably the biggest part of it. But I mean, I don't think there wasn't. I mean, there's, like you said, we could talk forever. Like sometimes I get tired of talking about myself, and especially when I'm like answering the same questions that I've answered over and over. But you obviously did your homework, and like I love those types of interviews where the person actually kind of knows what the deal is before they get on. Because sometimes you'll get on and do these podcasts, and you're like, these guys have no idea who I am. Like and like they're just asking me questions. Like you could have watched my Sports Center interview and answered all of those questions and then not had to, you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
it's cool that you put in the work, that you kind of do like the research on getting to know the person before you have them on. I mean, I kind of feel bad that I didn't do the research before this interview, because I was like, just because you came recommended by a friend, I was like, yeah, you're cool by association if you're buddies with Matt, because he's a good buddy of mine. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that. But I mean, I had no idea. Like I'll have to go and listen to some of your stuff. Have you had anybody cool on that you're like, oh, I can't believe I got to talk to that person?
Man, when you were talking about it right there, I went through in my head just a few things. Like, I mean, I've talked to, like, I mean, my idol was Roberto Bergerson, and he was a basketball player here at Boise State, which might not seem like a huge name to anybody, but that was one of them. Bruce Buffer from the UFC, I had him on here. He's the
Oh, that's
voice of the
cool.
Octagon. Got to interview him. Walter Bond, got to interview him. A guy who's Russell Wilson's mental consultant. His name's Trevor Moawad. Just interviewed him. Randy Livingston, former NBA basketball player. Jerry Stackhouse was in the NBA. I've interviewed him.
Yeah, I know Jerry.
Yes.
I think I have a minifigure of Jerry Stackhouse.
Jerry's the man. I just had him on the show 2 weeks ago, so he was really cool. Like I mean, when you were saying that, I'm like, you know what? Like this platform in the last 3 years for me, when I started it January 2017, it really has provided some really cool opportunities for me. So, and then I got you on here. First time, like having someone like yourself on here, which I honestly believe is one of the coolest things. I've never had a guest with a skill set like yours. So like all these things are just super, super cool, man. So
well, it's something like we live in the same town, so we'll probably become friends after this and like actually get to hang out. And then if the Wilder thing ever, Tyson Fury Wilder round 3 ever does happen, I might need somebody to go with me. Maybe I'll ask for a +1.
There we go. Hey, I'm just throwing my name out there. Don't feel any pressure, but man, that'd be super cool. And guys, again, at GoldYeller. Now, are you on all social media platforms? I know I follow you on YouTube and on Instagram. What about Twitter? Facebook? What's all the
Yeah,
platforms you're on?
I don't do a ton on Twitter. It's pretty like, I think the only reason I got on Twitter was because I knew Graham Dillette was on Twitter,
Uh-huh.
and so I was like, well, I'll have to tweet it at him. But I didn't really know how to work Twitter. Instagram is one of the places that I'm active quite a bit, but TikTok has actually been something that's just like, I've just gotten into it over the last 2 months, and I think I'm up to like 60,000 followers on TikTok, just like that, and it's just growing like crazy. So that, I mean, that's a place where I was like, I'd never thought I would be on TikTok, you know.
Well,
But that's a Gary Vaynerchuk thing, you know. He's like, get on TikTok, and so I was like, finally, I'm like, okay, I'll get on TikTok. And at first I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and then I kind of just stopped overthinking it, and it started to take off for me. I mean, 60,000 followers on TikTok isn't like huge, but
oh,
for
it
me,
is.
that's pretty big.
That's a massive following. I'm not a huge TikTok guy. I just barely got on there, like started trying to be more active on it, but like I only got like 40 something plus. Like I'm not as active as I should be. I was going to say though, your content, I just found you on TikTok as we're talking right now. I just found, I'm like, your content is perfect for the TikTok generation. I think this is so cool because you got a massive following, like really solid following on Instagram. And I was going to say TikTok would be the next place to go. And you obviously have taken advantage of that. That's awesome, man. I'm going to be following you here. Don't judge me for my lack of TikTok skill, but I will be following you because this is
I'll teach
incredible.
you. I'll teach you what you need to know. You could use TikTok for what you're doing. I think
we might need to talk about it then.
You could clip some things, and I think you could stand out on TikTok, and you don't have to dance.
That's the one thing. I don't want to dance.
Yeah, you don't have to put on a bikini and dance, and you don't have to do any of that. You could stand out on TikTok and not have to. I mean, I've never done a dance on TikTok before, and it's just exploding for me.
Oh, that's so cool. Good for you, man. I'm gonna be following you here too. So guys, I'm gonna post the links in the description here, especially for Instagram and TikTok, but it's at GoldYeller. GoldYeller. It's all the same. I'll put the link here in the description so y'all can hear it and go follow him on his social platforms. You're not going to want to miss what he's got coming on. It's like all these cool videos. You'll find yourself scrolling through these and you'll be at work going through your social media feed. 30 minutes later, you're like, oh, I was pretty unproductive for the last 30 minutes, but you feel like you're pretty accomplished. So again, Jared, I appreciate you joining the show. I just really appreciate you sharing your story with us, and hopefully we can connect later, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And for everybody out there listening, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. Leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. And you guys know the drill. We'll be back every single week with more content. Follow me on my social media platforms, and I'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.